Section 2.3 is about fractions and fraction notation. There are two objectives. A would be to identify the numerator and denominator of a fraction, and then to write fraction notation for part of an object or part of a set of objects and as a ratio. And the second aspect is to simplify fraction notation, like n divided by n to 1, 0 divided by n to 0, and n divided by 1 to n. This may all look a little complicated, the second part in particular, but as we do some of the exercises, it'll become very obvious. So when it comes to notation, numbers like 2/3 or something like that are written in fraction notation, and the top number is called the numerator, and the bottom part is called the denominator. That's the denominator, that's the numerator, and this of course is a fraction bar. So here's an example. It's really quite simple. So here 7 divided by 8. Identifying the numerator and denominator. The number on top is the numerator, and then on the bottom is the denominator. It's really, really simple. And so from now on, we will use numerator and denominator. We don't use the number on top or the bottom number, any of that. So that sounds not very mathematical. So we use numerator and denominator when we talk about fractions. And so the next few exercises have to do with identifying numerator and denominator. So in number 1, the exercise is about 1/5 of people age 5 and older in the United States speak a language other than English at home. So the numerator in the fraction of 1/5, this would be the numerator, 1. The numerator is 1. And the denominator is 5. Denominator. Exercise 2 states about 4/5 of the parts on a Toyota Camry were produced in the United States. So again, we have 4/5, and again, this is the numerator. And this number 5 is the denominator. And in the third exercise, it says, it is projected that 19/100 of the US population born in 2050 will be foreign born. So again, the numerator is 19. Numerator 19. And the denominator is 100. Denominator is 100. When we look at the next few exercises, the question is, what part is shaded? Well, the first question is, how many parts are there? There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parts altogether. So that's the number that goes in the denominator. And then we count how many parts are shaded. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5/6 of the object is shaded. Similarly, when we look at number 5, there are 1, 2, 3 parts. So that would be the denominator. How many are all together? And in this case, 1 part is shaded. In exercise number 6, we are looking at a whole gallon. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4 parts altogether. and 1, 2, 3 of them are shaded. So what's shaded is 3/4 of a gallon. In number 17, and number 7 rather, there's 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so 15 parts altogether. So 15 would be in the denominator. And how many are shaded? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8/15 of the object is shaded. In question number 8, what part of an inch is indicated? These little partitions are the 16ths of an inch. And so the 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, and one more is 15. So the 16th, the small marks are 16th, and 15 are indicated. So it's 15, 16. That's this mark here. And number 9, what part is shaded? Well, there are 5 times 3. There are 15 units. And all 15 are shaded. So it's 15 divided by 15. Number 10, each rectangle is divided into 3 parts. So the unit is thirds. Then we count how many are shaded. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So the answer is 10/3. 10 divided by 3. And in exercise number 11, we're looking at a gallon, and for a total of 2 gallons. And each gallon is divided into 4 parts, 4 equal parts. So the unit is 1/4. And since there's 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 equal units are shaded. The part that is shaded is 7/4. Next, we'll be covering some fraction notation for whole numbers, in other words, the equivalence of fractions and whole numbers. And so the fraction notation for 1, and so the number 1 corresponds to situations like those shown here. In other words, if we divide an object into n parts and take n of them, we get all of the object. In other words, one whole object. So whether it's one object that's not subdivided, or we subdivide it into 2 parts or into 4 parts, when we take the whole, we always get, in this case, 2 divided by 2. Here the unit is 4, but we have 4 divided by 4, etc. So here's the definition. The number 1 in fraction notation. N divided by n equals 1 for any whole number n that is not 0. And of course, the reason why n cannot equal 0 is because, remember, division by 0 is not defined. So any number divided by itself is equal to 1 except for 0. So here we have some very simple exercises. 1 divided by 1 is equal to 1, and we can make an equal sign. And 4 divided by 4 is also equal to 1. Any number divided by itself is equal to 1. And 34 divided by 34 is 1. And 100 divided by 100 is equal to 1. And 2,347 divided by 2,347 is equal to 1. And 103 divided by 103 is equal to 1. And you might wonder, why are we even doing this? Well, as you will see later on when we solve equations and other things, the quality of this type of notation turns out to be quite important. Okay, the number 0 in fraction notation. So 0 divided by n equals 0 for any whole number n that is not 0. So as long as the denominator is not equal to 0, 0 divided by a number is equal to 0. Again, we have some very simple exercises following this definition here. 0 divided by 107 is equal to 0. And also 0 divided by 1 is equal to 0. And 0 divided by 8 is equal to 0. And in number 23, 4 minus 4 is 0 divided by 567, and that is equal to 0. On the other hand, if a denominator of 0, n divided by 0 is not defined for any whole number n. So remember, it's any whole number. In other words, n could also be 0. So 0 divided by 0 is not defined, 5 divided by 0 is not defined, etc. So we look at some of these examples here, some of the exercises. So 15 divided by 0 is undefined. Undefined. In other words, there's no real there's no number that equals that expression. And so here we have 0 divided by, and 3 minus 3 is 0, and that's also undefined. So whenever you have a 0 in the denominator, you have an undefined expression, whether it looks like this or like that. And for the last part of the section, any whole number in fraction notation, whenever we divide any whole number by 1, this is equal to the whole number. That is, n divided by 1 equals n for any whole number n. So here we're to simplify some numbers. So based on this definition, 8 divided by 1 equals 8. 10 divided by 1 equals 10. 346 divided by 1 equals 346. Here we need to do a little bit of work. 24 minus 1 is 23. And 23 minus 22 is equal to 1. So 23 divided by 1 equals 23. And this is the conclusion of section 2.3.